Today we're going to talk about just enough administration, or JEA for short. And what JEA is a PowerShell remoting configuration that allows you to have specific control over what a user connecting to the JEA endpoint can do. There's two main configurations that we have to set up. The first is the session configuration, and it defines who can connect to the endpoint. The second is the role capabilities. This defines what the user can do after they make a connection to the endpoint. You can be very specific with which commands, parameters, and values the user is allowed to run. When a user makes a connection to the JEA endpoint, a virtual account is created, which is a one-time use elevated account, and based on the configuration of your role capabilities file, you can follow the principle of least privilege. Everything is logged in transcripts so you can see every successful and invalid command that a user attempted to run. So let's hop in and do a demo. I'm going to connect over to a Windows 10 workstation. And so from here, I'm going to PowerShell remote over to the server that we're going to configure as the JEA endpoint. I can type. First thing I want to show you is what the term splatting means. So as we go through the script on the left, you'll understand it a little better. So if I say get child item path, so I pass the parameter path to the commandlet get child item with the value of C:\\it. I can do that with splatting by assigning the parameter and value to a variable. So that will look something like this. So that's what splatting is. You just define your parameters and values into a variable, and then you can pass them to a commandlet. Just makes it easier to keep things organized and keep your scripts easy to read and modify. So to set up a JEA endpoint, the first thing we need to do is we need to create a couple of directories in a PowerShell module folder, and these have to be done in a directory under your PS mod path. So you can take a look at that. Just do. So when I create these directories, it needs to be under one of these directory paths. So we're just going to take this script in chunks. So we'll create our directories. The second thing we need to do is configure a JEA config folder under program data. We'll do that real quick. Now we're going to configure the session configuration file, and this defines who can connect and what role capability they will have. So you can see right here, I'm going to configure this to allow the help desk user the capabilities to do anything in the backup log view role capability that we'll configure here in just a second. So we're just going to splat this. Now we're going to configure the role capability file, and this is going to define very specifically what this user is allowed to do once they connect. So for this demonstration, I'm going to allow them to run the get service commandlet, the write host commandlet, the get child item commandlet, but only with the parameter of path and only with the specific value of c:\it backup logs. I'm going to allow them to run the get content commandlet, but only with the specific parameter of path and the value of c:\it backup logs nightly full.log. I'm also going to allow this user to run an external command of who am I. So we'll splat this over. Now I need to register the JEA config on the endpoint, and that's done with this last command right here. So it's not very complicated to set up, and once I run this command, it should kick this session off because the WinRM service is going to have to be restarted. So you can see that it registered the JEA config, and then it restarted the WinRM service, which kicked us off. So if I try to connect PS Remoting using the help desk account, let me show you what happens. And so that failed because the help desk user is just in the Active Directory group domain users, which I'll show you that here in a few minutes. But the way you connect to your JEA configuration is in your enter PS session command, you add the -configuration name parameter, and then with your, in our case, it's test because that's what I registered my JEA configuration name as. So if we do this now and connect with the help desk user, you can see that it now connected, and I have a little banner pop up just to know that it's a JEA configuration. So if I take a look at get command, you can see that the PowerShell commandlets that this user can run has been severely limited. So I can do, if I do get child item, I'll show you in the autoexec.ps1 that I configured in the role capability file to run when the account connects. I defined some defaults. So if you do get child item with no parameters, I have it default to path of c:\it backup logs. So if they try to for example, go to another folder, it will come back and tell them you can't do this because it's not specified. Also, aliases will not work. So ls is an alias in PowerShell to get child item, but it's not going to let that run either. So they can only run exactly what I told them to do. If I do who am I, you can see that it's actually a virtual user account that was created once the help desk user account connected to the endpoint. And this account will go away once this session is ended. So it's much more secure to connect this way. So they can get content, which they can read the content of the nightly full backup log. So basically this account is locked down to the point that all that it can really do is look at the services. It can read the backup log file, and it can run the whoami command. So it's really locked down. So let me pop out of here and let's connect back over as admin, and I will show you what groups the help desk user account is in. So you can see that the help desk user is just in the domain user's account. But once the help desk user connects to the JEA endpoint, then the virtual account is created with the elevated permissions to do specifically what I allowed them to do. So it's a much more secure way to have administrative functions on your servers without the actual user accounts having any administrative functions. If we go, I'll show you the auto exec startup file that I had run once the user connected to the endpoint that showed the banner and also defined specifically what the parameter values would be if they didn't pass any. Let's see, I think I put it here. So once the user connects, autoexec.ps1 runs, which displays the banner, and then I define the default parameter values for the commandlets that they can run. So it's a really secure way to have users be able to do administrative tasks on your servers, but only do the specific tasks that they need. If we go back to, if we go into the transcripts folder, you can see that you have a log of everything that they did. You can see what commands were ran. If they type invalid commands, you'll see them in here. So you also have a log of everything that happened on every connection to the JEA endpoint, and it really helps for security auditing, monitoring, and logging. So I hope you found this informative and useful, and thank you for watching.